Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And in my previous video, we created this journal page, Thrinchy. We created Thrinchy 64. And this has inspired me to do a journal page. So I'm going to create a journal page. And what I'm going to do is do the same sort of principle of, let's just unfold this so that we've got that page. I'm going to do the principle of stamping lightly in the background and then adding an image as the main focal point. So what I'm going to do is take, which one are you going to take? Which background stamp are you going to take? Deciding on what background stamp you're going to take is the hardest thing. And obviously that's now going to take me ages. Which one do you want to do? Let's just, you can tell when I'm just having a little play. I'm just deciding what I want to do. So let me just move this out of the way and let me just have a think. So don't forget, it's just going to be a background. So it's just to show stamping lightly in the background and then putting something in the foreground that just pops against that. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this alphabet here on TE32. So some of the letters are not straight, some are just how I've put them back. Let's just straighten a couple that are upside down. In fact, they're not even on there the right way. But I'm going to use the alphabet as it is. Oh, and what I'm going to do, without sort of pulling the drawer out, I'm going to use my VersaFine Claire Morning Mist. And this is quite a well-used one. So don't let's ink over the page, Tracy. And as you can see, I'm literally going to use this on the stamp. So I'm not taking the letters off. I'm just going to use this on the stamp. Obviously, the alphabet is designed to be used so you can spell out your own different words. But I'm going to use this as a background element. So I'm just going to use all the letters just as a background element on my piece of journal page. So as you can see, it's just a background. It doesn't have to be stamped perfectly. It's just going to act as that background. So I'm just using this as my background, and that's all I'm going to use it as, simply as a background. So it just gives me a background element. So let's just wipe that up so that doesn't stain. I normally remember to put a piece of copy of paper underneath, and then you don't have that staining your non-stick craft sheet. So let's move this out of the way. So in some ways it doesn't matter what you place in that background. It's entirely up to you what you place in the background. Now, because I've got blues on the opposite page, you can see here on this page I used the stencil with all the tickets on, this 6x6 stencil, and it's got blues and browns on there. So I may as well colour the floral in blue to coordinate with that page. So let's bring this in. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pick, so, oh, I just trapped my thing in the drawer there. I've got the Clematis on my desk, so let's take the Clematis. And then I can decide where I would like this clematis. So I'm going to have one there, definitely. And what I'm going to do, let's move this out of the, let's just chuck that on the floor. I want to stamp it in an oxide, or, you know, something that dissolves with water. I've got that many things by my drawer. So what I'm going to do is, that's a tumbled glass, looks like a nice pale one. Let's see how pale that is. So I'm going to use my small Distress Oxide inks, which I'm slightly obsessed with at the moment. So I'm just going to use tumbled glass, and let's see if that will be enough. So I'm going to take the tumbled glass. Now the good thing about this is it will dissolve in with the colour that I use, which is going to be a blue colour. So it means I can add that darker blue over the top. Let's just bring this in so you can see. So I'm going to add one around about there, like so. So let's add that one there and just give that a little bit of time just to absorb onto that page. Like I always say, don't rush that. I always find as well, when it's the sort of run up to Christmas or it's in between Christmas and New Year, I love a little crafty play. It's like a reset, a crafty play, and just relaxing into it and no pressure. So it's like a reset for me of having a little play with things. So let's add one there. And then, can I do one without? Shouldn't I have one there? Yeah. Do you like I'm having two and I can't make my mind up? So let's just add so I'm just using that blue, that little tumbled glass ink, because it's nice and pale, and I'm going to colour this in a blue anyway. Can you tell I have no idea where I'm putting this? Let's put it there. There we go. Do you like that? Couldn't make my mind up at all. There we go. And don't be in a rush, because this has got some areas that have got that silhouette element as well. So just be mindful it's got that silhouette element. Now we've got that oxide ink on there, so let's just give that a wipe, because we don't want that sort of cloudy ink on there, so that we remember when we go back to a normal VersaFine Clair, then that won't be affected by that oxide ink. So let's just move that out of the way, like so. Right, and I'm just going to enjoy myself now with my Gansai Tambi 48 colours. Now I would like some blues, so where are the colours again? Forgotten my colour chart, hang on a minute. There's a colour chart within your 48 colours. So I want a really dark blue, which might be the Prussian blue 66. So we need to find 66. It's got this plastic cover over the top. We'll just place that on one side. So some of these look a bit bluey. So what's this one? And these just come out. That's 64. What colour is this? 66. So that is Prussian blue, which is quite dark. And then I would like a little bit of a paler blue, maybe 63. Is that one of these? I like that you can just pull them out. That's 60. What's 60? No, it's 2. I want 63. Surely it's one of these, because these are too pale, aren't they? Well, we'll soon know, won't we? What are you classed as? 61. I might take that as a pale colour. Where's 63 then? 69. These all look bluey to me. Oh, there, 63. That one. Let's put them back there then. I love that you can pull them out and you've got your numbers underneath. So let's move these out of the way. And what I like to do is, let's bring these in. Let's just grab a bit of kitchen roll. There we go. So let's grab a little bit of kitchen roll, and I'll just grab a little bit of white, super smooth. You can't see them. So let's bring these down. And what I'm going to do is just spritz those with water. Now let's put these in order. So that's the dark, medium and light, as if I was doing my pencils. And what I like to do normally is just give them time, just so they absorb the moisture, and then you've got that rich pigment. If you're unsure with what you're working with, obviously you can do colour swatches. That's like my dark colour. That's my mid colour. Yes, I think those work quite nicely together. So let's just spritz with a little bit more water. And the reason I've got the kitchen towel here is one reason only. Because I was spritzing with water, I didn't want to spritz the water everywhere. I'm staying quite tidy within the area. And I'm just going to take some of that moisture off. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start with the dark blue, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that dark blue, like I would with a pencil. So I'm just coming in and I'm just going to add a little bit of the dark blue. And what I'm trying to make sure is that if I pick that pigment up and it's got too much water on there, I'm removing a little bit of that water, just so that it doesn't run away with me. So just keeping some of that. There we go. And I can come in with a blue that's even darker, just to highlight the centre area, should I wish. Just so I can see that centre area. So let's come down here. So I'm just adding a layer of that dark colour. Now, if you're using a palette, obviously you can keep just, where's my, have I got a palette? Bear with me. I've got some of these disposable paint palettes. Where am I going to put it so you can see? Let's bring it down here. So you can put your colour in here, in your palette. And just add a little bit of that dark colour. So I'm just adding a little bit of that dark colour. Let me just, as you can see, just little bits of that dark colour. Now, I'm not going to come in and sort of blend that out. What I'm going to do is, you should really have a jar of water that you can rinse your brush in clean water. I'm then going to go to the next colour, just so that you can see that. And then I'm going to blend in to the previous colour with that. And they're quite close, they're quite dark colours. I'm just blending into the previous colour with that. So let's pick, I can just go into my palette here. I can just blend this out. You can pick up more of your pigment. And at the moment, I'm just using this like I would with my pencils, just coming into the colour. So let's have a little bit more water. And then we'll take our beautiful pale colour. I will mention the colours. So the dark colour is number 66, Prussian Blue, which I've just then tipped over all my trousers because I'm good like that. Because I should have given you the colours beforehand. So that's Prussian Blue, which was the dark colour. You've then got '63 Cerulean Blue. And then you've got Ultramarine. I could just have a look in the packaging. Let's have a look. So let's give you the names. So they are 66, which was Prussian Blue. Then we've got 63, which is Cerulean Blue. And 61, Ultramarine Pale. There you go. Far easier way to do it than tip the containers up, Tracy. Right, so we've got this, the pale blue now. Can you see I'm not having much water on there? And what I'm going to do is just blend out with that paler blue. So just add a little bit of that pale blue. So I'm just taking the pale blue and coming in to this darker blue. And at the moment we've got, you know, we haven't got much definition or anything at the moment. So let's Let's pick a little bit of that water up because I've got no moisture. So I've just come in with my 3 colours, just like I would with pencils. And I'm just going to take this tinted water and I'm just going to take off the excess, and then I'm going to come in. I don't think I put a bit of blue on here. I've got kitchen roll at the side as well, and I'm going to come in and sort of push all the colour. There we go. So let's take this water, and I'll try to move the book so that you can see. I'm going to come in and just blend the edges. Now the book I'm using is my Pink Pig journal. So I'm just using the Pink Pig journal, and I'm just pushing the water up to the tip of that pale blue. And that's just, so nothing fancy at the moment, just coming in, picking up the tinted water, and I'm just going to blend that out a little bit. Okay. So at the moment we've just got that blended out. So what I'm going to do is let's pick up some of this dark blue again. I like to take off the excess so that I haven't got too much. And I'm going to bring in those dark edges again. Just so that we've got that in. And just bring in that little dark edge again. So I'm just using the darkest colour. And my brush has got enough moisture on at the moment. You can see that it's getting very dark here. You can see that I'm not using too much moisture. I'm just coming in with that dark. Okay, I'm going to rinse it with that tinted water, and I'm going to come into my mid colour, which is this one here. We'll just blend into I want to bring the colour down a little bit. So I'm just going to bring the colour down a little bit. And I'm just going to do one floral at a time. I just find it easier doing one at a time. And the thing that I like about watercolours is the colours, the pigmentation, it's so rich. So I do love that pigmentation. The pigment, not pigmentation, the pigment that is in these. I'm going to rinse that, and then I'm going to come to this the palish colour. Now I need to just move that a little bit. So I'm then going to come in to this colour. we go. So I'm using that palest colour, and like I would with my pencils, there it is. I'm going to, and I've got a bit of water just on the tip of there. So I'm just going to come in and just blend these out. Now, if I just use a little bit of clean water, so just a bit of clean water, take off the excess, and I'm just going to push in there we go, just so that we haven't got a harsh edge, just so that we haven't got a harsh edge. But I do love the vibrancy of a watercolour. I just think the colours are so vibrant. So we need to come in to just a bit more with this second colour. Just bring it a little bit further down. And what I like about doing something like this is you can just lose yourself. Quite easily, just in the process. And you can see that's got a little bit too much water on there. Let's go to the pale colour now, and let's blend in with the pale colour. Just blend that out. And you can see that I'm not affected by the background at all. Just coming in with the pale colour. There we go. Let's have a little bit more here. And then I'm just going to use a little bit of water and just blend this out. Like so. The other thing, it's very easy to blend that watercolour out a little bit as well. It's really easy. I can also come in with a little bit of pencil work if I wish. I'm just going to dry that layer. Where are we? Just so I can build up more layers. You can't beat watercolour for vibrancy. It's just wonderful. So I'll pick up a little bit of water and I'll come into the very dark colour. Just make sure my brush is not all splayed out. And then I'm just going to add a little bit more detail, just so that we've got some of the dark detail in again, like we've had before. like which one. So just bringing in a little bit of the detail, just a little bit. I'm going to blend that out just so it's a little bit darker, just so that you can see. Just going to make that a little bit darker in that centre area. A little bit darker in the area as well. So I'm just going in really dark. Just to highlight a little bit more. Of some details, just adding a little bit more. Just so that you can see the detail. I'm then going to, let's just use a little bit of water. I'm then going to come to this mid colour. And I'm just going to, and if you think, no, that's running away with me, just dab it onto your kitchen roll. Just dab that onto your kitchen roll. So just picking up that mid blue. So just losing myself now. I couldn't be without the finer brushes now. I really couldn't. So I'm going to come back now to this pale blue. And just blend some of that out. So it's lovely and easy with your moisture to blend out the colour. Obviously, if you've got the right cardstock that allows you to move that colour. So as long as you've got something that allows you to move that colour, it works really nicely. There we go. Let's blend this out. So just using a little bit of moisture just to blend into the colours a little bit, so nice and watery. So I'm going to come back to this dark colour and just add a little bit more detail again, just where I need it to be a little bit darker. Try not to do what I've just done and lean straight into it, which is not a good idea. So it's entirely up to you. There's a little. You see, if you want to add some of these fine details in, you can use your pencils if you want to add a little bit more detail in there, we can do that, no problem at all. Let's just use that water again. Let's use a little bit more of that mid blue and just bring that out a little bit. Can you see how much water's on there? Just blend that out a little bit. And remember which is your mid colour, because it's so easy to go into the wrong colour. And I can prove that quite easily because I do it every time, so it's not a problem. Then I'm going to come to the lovely light colour, and then we'll just blend in with that light colour. A little bit more. And then you can just pick a little bit of your tinted water up, or fresh water, whichever you prefer. Just dab a little bit off, just so that it's not going to run away with you. So I can just use a little bit of water just to blend the colour out. And when you've got the correct card, it does blend out rather beautifully. So let's just blend that out a little bit more, so it's not quite as harsh. So what I want to do now is find a grey in my paint palette, which will be, see, you can turn them upside down, not when they're wet like I did. 21 grey. So we'll take the grey. I'm just going to pick that up. And then I'm going to bring the grey like so. Now I need some clean water. So what I'm going to do is, let's grab a wipe and clean one of these palettes out. I love the disposable palettes. Well, you can reuse these, but what I mean is it's just plastic. So I'm going to take some water, and then because I've got the correct card that moves, it works rather nicely. So I'm going to pick up the neat pigment. Oh, and look how much pigment's there. So just take a little bit off there. Let's just go around like you can see. There you go. Then we'll just blend this out. And the alphabet underneath is not going to move, because that's a permanent ink pad, because we use that, what's it called, the grey? Forgotten. Oh, what a drip. It is called Morning Mist. Do you like how I couldn't remember what it was called? So I'm just going to come in. And you can just blend some of that out. Now, it doesn't matter if some of it touches the blue. It just goes with the overall theme, that sort of watery theme. Pick up that water, and then we can blend this out with, look how much water I'm using. Plenty of water just to blend out the darkness. And it really helps by having that fine brush. Look how much moisture I've got on there. It doesn't matter. So I'm going to pick up just water, go into that. So I push into it because it'll keep the dark area in towards the clematis. Need a bit more water. So just push into that. Then it will just keep the dark area just in towards the clematis. There we go. I love the pages in this journal. So I'm going to come in so that it's nice and dark. And I want the dark to stay in the edge. So I've got this water that is no longer clean, but it's tinted grey. And I'm going to push that up, push into it, so the dark stays where you want the dark to stay. So just push that in. And if you've got a little bit of pigment that's just lying there, just convince it to bleed out a little bit. There we go. And really, I need to turn my book around because it is far easier to do it this way than the way I'm trying to do it. So let's lay down that dark, rich pigment right to that edge. Then we can pick up our tinted water and push into that. So push into the grey and then just drag that out. So let's just add the pigment. Then we'll pick up that tinted water. As you can see, look, just tinted water. And just convince that to bleed out. And then you can use some proper clean water just to convince that. You see, I can see there's a little bit of pigment just lying there. I'll come to that after. So we'll pick up again. Pick up that grey. And let's do it again on the other edge. Then just drag the water into that area. So take the rich pigment right in to the edge. And then pick up this water. I'll worry about this one afterwards. And you will pick a little bit of blue up, but it actually adds to the whole thing. Right. You actually need so that you can actually turn it round. So I'm going to pick up a neat pigment again and just go in. Pick up the water. Just take that out a little bit. And then we'll come back in again. Look how much moisture is on there. Just add that to our clematis. And it's great because you can still see our alphabet or whatever you've used in the background. There we go, just drag that out. So I'm going to try and do these other ones now without turning my book. So obviously if you turn your book, it's far easier. Especially because you can see, let me just bring this up now and come in. Let's grab, what we'll do is we'll wipe that up and we'll just put a little bit more water in here just so that we can activate, just so that that bleeds out. I love the fact that it bleeds out. It's just yummy. Let's grab another piece of, oh, I've got some kitchen roll here. Let's just grab that piece, just so I've not got any near the page. So I'm going to take the grey again, and let's just add some more of that lovely neat grey. Around the edges, and then pick up that water. See how much it's pigmented? You can see because how much it tints the water. There we go. So we'll come back in again, and then we'll come again into here, all nice and dark with that grey. Come a little bit closer. Then we'll grab our tinted water and go into, and when it gets a little bit too dark, we'll just grab a little bit more water. There we go. Just so that you've got that grey on there. It makes your page pop a little bit. And then what I'm going to do is just lightly mist it all, just so that it's a little bit more sort of gentle. And then I'm going to take some Posca pen, and I'm just going to add some of my white to the wet, just because it makes everything just a little bit softer, and I like that. Again, I'm just going to add a little bit of moisture there because it's just not watery enough. So you can sort of blend it as much as you want. So I can see an area now. So if I grab this, I can see that that is not even blended out enough. There we go. So it's entirely up to you how much moisture you add or don't add. It's entirely up to you. But because you've got that card on there that allows that moisture to move, it works really nicely. So let's give this a dry now. And again, the alphabet has not moved. Give this a little bit of a dry, so we're not working on a page that is completely soggy. And you can see I'm not blotting the page, I'm drying it. So I'm not removing that colour. But, right, we need some clean water now. So let's make sure our brush is clean. You can still come in, I don't think that's clean, with a fine brush. Just take this, use this kitchen roll. You can still come in and you can remove watercolour if you wish. So I can remove little touches of watercolour just to remove in certain areas. You can remove little bits of watercolour. So it's entirely up to you. Again, no different than with your oxides. But obviously the watercolours are slightly more vibrant. So you can sort of bleach out areas so that you can maybe see where you want to add some highlights or whatever. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to grab my white. The white in this watercolour, it's scrummy. It's just white, number 10. It is lovely. And I think it was Lucy in the DT said, oh, Tracy will get through that white. She wasn't wrong. I'm terrible. There's just something about white for me. Now, there's far too much moisture on there. Let's just... And let me just see if I can just use the watercolour white just to add some touches of white. Ask me if I'm holding my breath. Of course I am. Of course I am. A pale, no, that's me. A fine brush really is your best friend. I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. Excuse me. Sorry. So let's add some touches of white to this as well. Now just try and make sure, unlike me, you don't dip your hands in there. The problem I'll have now is I just get so engrossed in this that I can't stop. So I'm just adding some little, where's my kitchen roll? And what I love is I can just dab it if I've gone too much. It's just wonderful. So let's just add. Lovely and vibrant. Just to add a few little touches. And really what we should do is dry that again. And then we should do it again. I've sort of got my brush loaded and then I'm taking the excess off. Obviously you can use your bleed proof white, but I wanted to use the watercolour, the same pigment that I'm actually using. And I'm just adding light touches of the white. I'm not really coming in too hard with the touches of white. I'm just adding delicate touches of that white, just so that the whole thing just comes to life a little bit. But it's not too harsh, if you know what I mean. It works quite nicely. And I'm going to pick up some of this now. And I should be able to just add a few little touches of this white. There we go. It should bleed into the background if I've got enough water on. Again, just to soften the background a little bit. I end up with bits everywhere. And wherever you've got moisture that it's just too much, just dab that. And then I'm just going to give this a dry. So pigmented. And what you get is the white bleeding, the grey bleeding, the blue bleeding. Sounds weird, that does, doesn't it? Really does. So it just works quite nicely. I'm going to come in with the white again, just taking off the excess. I'm going to come in again. I just think there's nothing like touches of white. Less is more though, so don't get your brush too loaded. You don't want that. You just want less is more. Just adding a few little touches of highlights just to. And if you've got a camera to look through, that really does help. It helps a lot. Keep all these on here. So let's just grab. I want a little bit of text now. So I'm going to use TE45 because it's got that text on there that's all about the garden. grab the text. And I'm going to use, let's move that up, an ink pad I couldn't be without, which is my Morning Mist, even though I couldn't remember the name of it earlier. So I'm going to use my Morning Mist. And I just love this. So I can add some of the text now. And I've got a rich pigment in the background, so this won't be too overpowering. So I'm just adding little bits of the text here and there, just to add a little bit more interest to my background. The problem with me is I could spend ages just doing and creating little background elements. Let's leave that there. Just leave that stamp there just in case I decide I want to add some touches of black, which I may do. So I'm going to add little stems to mine. Okay, then I'm going to grab, which I always forget, I want the stencil. Oh, come on, Tracy. I'm then going to grab, which one are you going to grab, Tracy? Where's the vase? There it is. So let's take our little vase stencil now. Maybe after Christmas you can create this if you're at a loose end. I know what you're saying, Tracy. Are you ever at a loose end at Christmas? It's so busy. But like, for instance, my hubby's watching the darts, so perfect time for me to create a page. So I'm going to come in. I'm going to make my vase a little bit smaller because I don't want it up here. So I'm going to make my vase a little bit smaller. And I'm going to use my Inktense pencil. And I'm going to draw around the vase. There we go. So I've drawn around my vase. Now let's add a little bit of a base to that vase. Now I've used my Inktense pencil, so that means it will react with water. Now I don't want all this white on here, she says confidently. So we don't want all the white on there. Let's grab some water. And then again, I haven't got enough room on my desk. Let's move that ink pad. Let's move this round. And because I've got that Inktense pencil, it will blend in to here. As you can see, you can blend that. However, if we use a little bit of our grey watercolour as well, we can then activate that with a little bit of the watercolour and just keep the dark edge. Look at this, how everything's moving. There we go. So I've got the grey, and that can activate the Inktense pencil and the grey at the same time. So I've got my grey watercolour in my palette, and I'm activating the Inktense with the grey. I'm then going to get some clean water, and then we'll just blend this out. we've also got the Inktense on the stems. So let's bring the Inktense in on those stems. And let's bring a tiny little bit more of that grey in there. Just there we go. So you've then got your vase that also is part of our design. Now I'm going to add a little bit more shading around that side. So again, I'm going to come in and we'll just activate the Inktense pencil. And it's up to you how much you blend that out. There we go. So then we'll give, and I've worked all in a little area here that's on kitchen roll. So let's just give that a little bit of a dry, because you don't want everything to be soaking wet. I'm then going to take a little bit of the white pigment. I'm going to take some of that water off, and then I'm just going to add a little bit of the white pigment just down here, just so that I can makes it a little bit lighter. You can also sort of bleach out the area as well if you wish. So if you don't want to add white, you can just bleach out some of the area. It's entirely up to you what you want to do. I think I'm just going to bring, after doing that, I'm going to bring the stems a little bit lower down because I'm a fuss pot. So let's just bring those stems a little bit lower down. That's better. Just so they look like they are properly in the vase. Just give everything a little dry again. Just so that everything isn't just sitting on there. Now I'm going to use, let's grab a little bit of water. So I'm adding water to a little bit of the blue that's here, the pale blue. And I'm just going to sort of add a little bit of a water. And if you've got the right card, it will move just enough for you. Let's just, okay. Just so that you've got a touch of the blue in there. I'm then going to take my bleed proof white. Shall we put a little bit in the lid? So I'm just going to put a little bit in the lid. But again, I don't want that too watery, so we do want, you know, a good layer of pigment in there. I don't like it when it goes all the way up my brush, because that drives me mad. So I've got some of that bleed proof, and then I'm just going to just add a little bit of a highlight. Let's add some light to that stem. Again, the fine brush is your friend. It really is. The fine brush is your friend. So it's entirely up to you then if you want to add some more touches of white that's not sort of quite as watery as your previous. It's entirely up to you. You don't have to add the white if you don't wish, but I quite like it a little bit doodly, if that makes sense. Not quite so, not regimented. There we go. So we'll add a little bit of white, and then there we go. So now I'm faffing, because that's me all over. I love a good faff. I think I'll just clean that out of my lid, because I've got quite a few layers in there. I've now just, it's hilarious because I've just wiped the white just all over my container. But you can see how our page has come along. Now, you can leave it like that if you wish. Oh, no problem at all. But you can also, where are you? Let's grab a little, what's the dark one called? Oh, and the one bit I have zipped up is the one bit I want. So is it this one? Which one is the darkest? That one. There we go. And luckily it's been sharpened as well. So I've now got indigo blue, which is PC 901. And what I can do, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. So you can come in and you can just add little tiny touches of definition if you want to, just to your design, and particularly around this centre. So it's entirely up to you if you want to add those little touches or not. It's not much, it's just a little touch, especially around this centerpiece, just so that you know that that stands out. Just gives it a little tad more definition. And you can just see a little bit more of that detail just in that center area. It just gives it a little touch for that detail. I'm then going to take the Clematis word. So on the Clematis stamp, let's take the Clematis stamp off. I never put it back the right way, but there you go. There is the word Clematis. So we'll take that. I'm going to stamp that in black. Again, I would recommend pushing everything out of the way, just so that you don't end up, let's just clean that, with the black ink all over your page. And we'll just add the word Clematis. To our page, and that stands out there in the background. Just give my hand a little clean, and we'll come in with a little bit of that shading. Again, I just need to remove the pigment because it's white. And then you see there's hardly any moisture on that, mainly because it's a fine brush. So I need to add a little bit more water to that. Just soften that out, just so it moves. There we go. Then we'll just move some of these stamp sets out of the way. That means I can think better if the stamps are not all cluttering the desk. So let's move these out of the way. Let me just have a look at that. So I'm going to put this text away. Like so, let's put that away. Now, if you wanted to, you could quite easily add some of the berries to this, and you can see how long it's taken me because I'm not rushing. But if you've got TE55, I'm trying to pull the acetate off without pulling the whole thing out, if that makes sense. Probably not. But if you wanted to, you could quite easily add berries to these. So let me just have a look. This is so well used, this stampers. I think I'll just give it a clean at the back because it is super, super grubby. Let's just give that, and then it'll stick on there nice and easily. So let's take Twilight ink. So I'm going to take Twilight ink, and I'm just going to ink a little area of those berries. And it means if I don't want to, I don't have to mask off the area. I can just stamp some of these berries onto my page. And the Twilight works beautifully on its own. And I can add some touches of white quite easily, just to lift that. You can't see, let's move this here. So I can easily add touches of white, no problem at all. So I can play around with this and just add whatever berries I want to the design. So it's entirely up to you. So let's take Twilight again. So just using the Twilight. Do I want some? Oh, that's going to go on the Clematis, isn't it? So how about, I talk to myself. How about I remove some of that? So let's have that there. So just adding a few of those berries just to finish this design off a little bit. And these berries just go with everything. It works really, really nicely. So see, I've got my acrylic block now in the way. So let's just... So you just have to make sure that your acrylic block isn't going to get in the way. Yeah, just one there. So just grab this as well. And then you spend longer putting the berries on than you do anything else. And you don't have to worry if you've, let's just make that so it's part of that and not overhanging. If you've missed part of the branch off, you can always come in and just add the branch. Let's bring in a little bit more depth to that floral just while it's near the berries. So what you can do then is you can just add a tiny little bit more depth to the berries just at the base if you wish. Just add a tiny little bit more with the dark blue that we've used. You don't have to. They're quite dark actually, they're not too bad. So now we'll come in and we'll frantically look for our paintbrush, which we've used 100 times, and now because I've pushed everything out the way, I'm then going to take the bleed proof again. And we're just going to add a little bit of that white just to the berries, because at the moment it's a little bit grey, because obviously we've got that grey underneath there. So just giving those a little bit of that bleed proof white, and it just lifts them a little bit. You can just add a little bit of white to the stems. You see, you can just keep getting carried away by adding lots more detail. I need a little bit of moisture. By just getting carried away. Oh, I could spend ages doing these kind of pages. It's just wonderful. and especially when I know that I don't have to rush. And because it's Christmas, there is no rush. There we go. Let's just bring a little bit more white there. There we go. And you too can faff as much as me. And then you can have as much mess as me to clean up. It's great. Let's just move that stamp out of the way. And then we'll just add a few little splatters. Just make sure that you don't splatter on your clematis word. And then if I lift this page up, let's open the book a bit. And then you can see your page that we've created. Just love it. And if you want to, you can easily come back in with a little bit of, this is my problem. It's like just a little bit of, you know, the mid blue that we used. Let's add a bit of water. Oh, crikey. Let's just take the moisture off there. You can always come in with a little bit of the mid blue as well. And you can just add a little sort of touch of the mid blue as well, if you wish, just to your berries. I'm just faffing, but you can add a little bit of the watercolour, just where you've maybe got some open areas, just to add a little bit of that mid blue if you wish. But that's our page finished. And I can see something still not quite. Hang on. Let me see if I can just get some of this watered down grey. Let me just bring in a little bit more. Just the watered down grey. There we go. And when that's all dry, you can close your book. I just love that. Absolutely love it. And again, if you are a fuss pot, you can also come in and just add a little bobble of shading as well. So you can come in and just add a little touch of shading just to your berries. And you can even use that tinted grey water just to touch that up. But it's entirely up to you how much of the details you enjoy. I must admit, in real life, when you add a touch of the grey to the berries, they are a little bit more dimensional. And if you've got half a brain, unlike me, you would have done the top ones first and not the bottom ones, and then you're not leaning over your work. But it does make a difference when you add the shading to those berries. So I hope you've enjoyed that. Maybe you're doing it after Christmas. Maybe you're doing it in between Christmas and New Year. Whatever, I hope you enjoy it. Love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.